Hey, welcome Badger Nation. Jeff Grimes here. Today I've got a treat for you coming right here from Camp Randall Stadium, our brand new offensive line coach, Eric Mateos. Eric, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, everybody.
So fired up for you to be here. Let's start with your name. I get a lot of questions. Hey, what is Mateos all about? Tell us who you are and what your name means, where it came from.
My dad is from Cuba, and the funny story behind my name actually is it was originally Mateo when my family went from Spain to Cuba, and somehow on the paperwork they added an S in Cuba, and so it's been Mateo since then.
And so if we call you Mateo, that would technically be accurate as well, right? As some have in the past.
Some people ignore the S on their own, yeah.
The S is silent in some places.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about how you got into coaching. How did football become kind of your thing and your lifestyle?
So I started playing in third grade, and it was I got kicked out of soccer because I refused to wear shin guards. So I got kicked out of that, and so we started doing football.
They just weren't cool enough? Or?
Well, no, I think I didn't like them, and then I was really good on defense, and so a parent on the other team complained that I was too good because I didn't wear shin guards, and they kicked me out of the game, and I decided I was never going to play soccer again. It had nothing to do with my weight or my size or anything.
I wouldn't have never thought that.
And then so we started doing football third grade, and just that was it for a long time, and played some basketball. But then when I got done playing in college, I had accepted another job, actually. I was going to go be a recruiter for a staffing agency when I got done playing. And my old coach called me and asked me if I wanted to coach at Hutchinson Community College. And I asked my dad and my high school coach, Coach Claypool, what they thought. And they said, you might as well try it while you're poor, because you're not going to want to do it when you make a little bit of money. So started doing it right then.
And it feels like to me in some of our conversations over the years that was sort of a formative time for you. You're pretty proud of your time at Hutch and the time you spent in the junior college ranks. What's something that you learned there that you've taken with you over the next number of years you've been in this business?
I just think like not being afraid to do different jobs. You know, when you're coaching Division II in junior college, I was the video coordinator. I was the assistant equipment coordinator. I was an assistant strength coach. All the hats that you wear at those schools, you kind of learn, like, be willing to do anything. And I thought that was really good for me because I know sometimes, you know, at the higher level schools, people don't understand what other people's jobs are. Whereas, like, I walk in, I know what it's like to stay late and wash laundry for the players, and I know what it's like to try and get the video right before the head coach calls and yells at you. So I think it's given me an appreciation for everybody's job that goes into what we do.
I see that. I certainly see that in you. No job too big, no job too small. And I coached high school football and D3 ball as well, so I have a real appreciation for that as well. And so then you and I got linked up. You were a grad assistant for Sam Pittman, somebody who I had a friendship with and a lot of respect for. And he recommended you to me, and you came and started helping me out with the offensive line at LSU. Tell people a little bit about what that experience was like, and maybe even your living arrangements for a little while when you were new to Baton Rouge.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to live with the Grimes for a short amount of time, and we had a little loft area at the house. It was like upstairs, right? Gray and Garrison attached to their room, and I was the third roommate, kinda, and shared the bathroom with the boys. And my only exposure to D1 football was Arkansas for 3 years as GA. So that was a good time for me, just going to LSU and saying, okay, here's how a different program does it. Here's how it looks at another place. And then here's what it looks like from another line coach. It's your first time seeing, well, like for 3 years, this guy's vision on how to play O-line and what to do and how to teach it. And then you get a whole new perspective of it. So that was probably the best part of that learning experience. And obviously, we had some big rushing games too, I think.
Yeah, we did. We ran for a bunch of yards. Had a lot of fun games. I remember when you had to go through, you had to pass through the boys' room. No, they had to pass through your room where you were staying, because yours was the loft, their bedroom was on the other side. So anytime they wanted to come downstairs or go to the bathroom, they had to come through where you were staying. And I remember hearing roughhousing at times, and occasionally one of the boys may have been put in a headlock.
Well, they would use the restroom like 5 times a night. So
we keep them hydrated.
Kids were
in our
very
family.
hydrated, so they kept me up all night. But I was just grateful to have a bed and not sleeping in the back of my Mitsubishi.
Yeah, when I said you could stay with me, and I said there would be some other people around, you didn't know you were going to have middle school roommates. So then you came, and we were working the O-line together. Great help to me, and then went through a transition when Ed Orgeron took over. And we needed somebody to coach tight ends. And so had a conversation with Ed and a couple other people about that. You took over coaching the tight ends. And this was really my first opportunity to see you work with a position room that was yours. And so if I remember right, you took a crash course on the pass game, and
so about 3 a.m.
learned how to teach routes in one night. And then you took over, and man, I remember those guys played their butts off. I mean, they blocked like offensive tackles and caught balls and played great during the time that you had them. And I know you had a lot of fun coaching them.
That was fun. No, I had not paid attention to a lot of the pass game installs up to that point. And then when Coach O said, you're coaching tight ends, I said, well, we have a meeting on Monday, and I better know what I'm talking about. So I think I stayed till about 3, 4 in the morning that night, making sure I knew all the routes.
Well, you did a great job in a real short amount of time, really making an impact on them. And so then we end up at BYU together. Talk a little bit about that experience and what you feel like that experience was like in your career and what that did for you.
I thought the best lesson I learned during that was it's not so much what you believe in as the coach as much as it is what your players can execute and do well. And I remember that first season that we were there, we had some adversity halfway through the year, and we're kind of having like an identity crisis as a team. And we said we need to make a difference, a change, and do something different the second half of the season. And we did. And I think over the second half of the year, I think we averaged like over 500 yards a game. I thought that was a great lesson to me that, you know, every coach has things they believe in and plays and X's and O's, but it's really the Jimmies and Joes doing it. And I thought we learned like, hey, this is what our players are better at. And so let's do that, and then we reap the benefits of that, and then it carried over into the next season, and where we broke a bunch of records and ranked real high. So that was probably the main lesson from that experience.
Sometimes necessity breeds change.
That's right.
If you're flexible enough to make that change, then it gives you an opportunity to move ahead and learn something in the process. I certainly did too. And then we spent 3 years together at Baylor. Great experience. Had some really big moments, and you were tasked with really rebuilding an offensive line there that really didn't have a whole lot of culture, and probably wasn't really headed in the right direction. And there was a combination of building up the guys that were there and bringing in some new guys to add to the mix as well. Just talk about what that was like, building the culture and getting to know those guys and developing that unit, because I thought we were one of the best in the conference for sure, and one of the better performing ones in the country for a little while.
We were the best O-line in that league for a couple seasons in a row, I thought. And I think a lot of it was the players finally believing when they looked in the mirror that they were who they hoped they would be. I think players all dream of this vision of themselves, and they all have this dream of this version of themselves that comes out and achieves their goals and their dreams. And I think a lot of times you have this vision and this hope on who you become, and players don't really know how to get there. I felt like we were able to kind of show some of the guys that were already at Baylor, hey, you are good enough, you are a good player, and you belong to as one of the best O-linemen in the country. And then the guys that we brought in, we brought in the right guys, and we brought in guys that love football and like to play with our style, and we were able to coach them on some things they needed to get better at, but more so it was galvanizing the belief and creating a gang mentality that nobody could mess with us, and that was a great group, and we had a lot of success, but it was really players realizing their own potential. It was no magic fairy dust, but sometimes that's the most important thing as a coach, is showing a player that he is who he hoped he could be.
Maybe a little magic in helping them see that.
A little bit, yeah, maybe.
So, and then you went and did the same thing at Arkansas. We've been apart the last 2 years, and I know it's been really hard for you. But took over a line that sort of needed some help, needed to be rebuilt, and I know you brought in some new guys there. And one thing I'm particularly interested in that I know Badger fans would love to hear about is, how do you bring in new guys and continue to build up the guys that are here, creating a bunch of guys that are our guys, not your guys or my guys or his guys, but creating a room that can really function well together?
Yeah, you got to break down the natural barriers, background, family, maybe it's financial, maybe it's education, maybe it's where you're from. And so those are natural barriers in sports and really all areas that everyone has to negotiate. But then I think when you bring people in, you got to bring the right people in. You got to bring in personalities that don't feel like they have to be the alpha day one. They're more humble and they're hungry, and they want to become that dominant version of themselves on the field, but they realize that this is a unit-driven position. And so I think as long as the coach, my job is to make sure the walls kind of come down, and it starts with me. I got to make sure that I'm vulnerable and I'm open and I'm open to learning new things and new styles. But then you got to bring in players that have a similar mentality, where they're not going to come in with ego, and they're not going to come in, thinking that they know everything, but they want to come in because they want to win a Big Ten championship. It's not a perfect science, but I think if you're looking at, hey, how are these players going to mesh with each other, and understand you don't want everybody to be the same. You don't want all the guys to come in with the same exact personality. You don't want to come in with the same background. You want to bring in some unique guys, and I think as long as we're doing that and the recipe's right, it can lead to a lot of success. And we did that at Arkansas, and we're ready to do that here. So
what particularly about this job excites you? What made you interested in being at Wisconsin?
Well, it's kind of a full circle. When I was coaching junior college, matter of fact, I went to the Cool Clinic. It was the first time I'd ever went in person, and I was listening to Paul Alexander talk, and he brought his rookie up on stage that he had just drafted, named Kevin Zeitler. And he wanted to show him off, and, showed some of his film and some of the things they had worked in OTAs. And so I remember seeing Kevin up on the stage. I was like, wow, that's a Big Ten O-lineman. That's what they look like. And then as I transitioned to become a graduate assistant, I worked for Coach Bielema, who came to Arkansas from here, and all he ever talked about was Wisconsin. And so I think just the affinity that all the people that I have known that have been here and worked here and contributed here, and then just the tradition that you learn about as an O-lineman, and O-line coaches appreciate the art of it, and it's really started here. And this is the most talent-rich tradition of offensive line play in the country. And if you get an opportunity to coach O-line here, you are not the boss. You are the temporary steward of something that's way bigger than you. And I think that's just such an honor, and that's probably the thing I'm most excited about being here.
Really cool. There is a rich history and tradition here, and I learned that early on. When I first got here, people are, when you take a new job as a coordinator, people want to talk to you about your quarterback, or hey, you gonna get that passing game going? I show up at the grocery store and guys are asking me if we're gonna play with a fullback.
Yeah.
They're gonna say, hey, how's our O-line looking?
Right.
How are you gonna get the run game back where we want it to be? And so there are a lot of people here that care deeply about the offensive line play and about Wisconsin football in general. And so I'm excited here, and we're gonna have a lot of fun here the next few years.
We are gonna have a lot of fun. It's gonna be great.